Welcome back to Honesty Talk. In this episode, Sumayah, LaYinka and myself are really excited because we have a guest and we're going to be speaking about why marriages fail. We have Imam Shakeel, mashallah, who is from Lewisham Masjid. He has been the acting Imam for 21 years at Lewisham Masjid, has been involved with the community and mashallah is overqualified in speaking about this topic. So, why marriages fail? Imam, first of all, Jazakallah khair for attending this episode. If I just ask the question, the title of the episode, why marriages fail, what would you say?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Firstly, thank you, sisters Aliyah, LaYinka and Sumayah, for giving me this opportunity and inshallah taking part in this very, very important subject, but also part of the discussions that you have had in the past: mental health, depression, racism, gender roles, and so on. All have been very, very beneficial. And alhamdulillah, a number of imams, a number of brothers have been viewing those episodes and benefiting. So alhamdulillah, we pray Allah Ta'ala gives you, blesses you with reward and barakah for your work, inshallah. In terms of why marriages fail, I think it's a very important discussion and deep discussion. And if I was to maybe ask a question to the sisters here, are marriages really failing? And we're speaking about, of course, the Muslim community.
I would say definitely. I see in my work at Solace and just generally with sisters that I know, marriages are failing. There's definitely an increase in divorce within the Muslim community. And I think it spans different cultures, reverts, non-reverts. It's everywhere. So I would say yes.
When we say marriage failing, though, and that's I do like that question. Are we attributing divorce to failure of a marriage? Because does it mean that a marriage has failed because two parties decide that they're no longer going to be together?
So I think that's also one of my reasons for asking that question. So sometimes it hasn't resulted in divorce, but spouses are not happy.
Right.
But they're in the marriage for reasons, whether it be children or something else. So I think that is quite important to kind of like maybe reflect on and focus on. But if I was to ask you a question and say, look, what are people or spouses looking in from a marriage? What would you say?
Companionship, to start a family. It feels like the next step. Yeah, like after you graduate from school or whatever, now it's time to get married and have a family. I think people just think that's where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, and this might be one of the problems, is that especially maybe from the side of sisters, they're looking for the man to give whatever is missing in their lives from within themselves. So sometimes it's a case of this guy will now make me feel great. He'll make me feel loved. He'll make fill in all the holes that exist within me. And there's that expectation, and if he doesn't fulfill that, then it's a problem. And he's fallen short.
I think it depends on the sister. I think it's, thinking along the lines of maybe the Asian, Arab, African culture. Like Sumayah said, you study, maybe you go to university or you get a job, and then it's the next thing. It's completing half of one's deen. From the reverts perspective, I think it's a lot more than that. I think it's a case of, I don't have Muslim family, so this is the way in which I can have a Muslim family. This is the way that I won't be alone. This is how I'll deal with, the loneliness and the isolation that I'm experiencing. So I think there's a different level or different reasons why a revert may get married than the others.
I mean, one thing, in terms of it's honesty talk. So, and I was reflecting on in terms of imams, when we, let's say, teach, or students of knowledge, when we kind of like teach about marriage and what you should be looking for in terms of a spouse, sometimes the focus is always on the external. Oh, is she wearing hijab? Fine. He has a beard, he's got a thobe, he goes to the masjid. Fine. And the real necessities that should be in a marriage, that's not being taught. Yeah. So a famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in which, he said concerning Khadija, he said, "Inni ruziktu hubbaha." I was given and nourished with her love. And when he was asked by one of the companions, "Who's the most beloved to you?" He said, "Aisha, his wife." The element of love. or seeking someone that you will love and someone that will love you. Our imams mentioning that, our communities mentioning that, our elders mentioning that. And that sometimes leads when there is no love in a marriage.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think we're past those days where people say, look, let's just be patient. It doesn't matter. People have passed that stage to say, look, I'm not going to live like that.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, an ingredient that we need to reflect on and focus on.
Can I ask you, I mean, I'm so glad that you've raised this point, because, I mean, we've had discussions about sisters kind of putting love and emotional intimacy and connection almost at the bottom of the list, particularly those that maybe embraced Islam or started practicing 15, 20 years ago. It was just, like you said, as long as he's practicing, he's got good character, he's got a job, that's enough. Even the job was a bit, back then. But it seems as though that was placed at the bottom of the list, but it is that love and that compatibility and connection that keeps a marriage going. Why is it, do you think, that there is a lack of discussion from imams and leaders about this, about the importance of seeking someone that you can love, seeking someone that you're compatible with, seeking someone that you can, build that kind of lifetime connection with?
I think in terms of, from an imam's perspective, their sometimes perception of, look, what needs to be taught in terms of religion, in terms of faith, it's very external, and the real issue, and especially in terms of, I think it's fine in terms of when you're discussing it from one angle, but from the angle of marriage and someone that you're going to be close to and intimate with, if these things are not discussed, it's going to be a problem in the marriage.
Yeah.
I remember listening to a lecture of one of the sheikhs, and he was given an example of one hadith where the spouse wakes up the other spouse for the night prayer. And this sheikh was saying, look, he never understood this hadith until he read through the Prophet ﷺ and his interaction with his wives, and realized how, he gives us a sample of, you go on a trip with one of your friends, you're tired, but your friend doesn't let you sleep. He sprinkles water or he messes with you, and you don't become upset because he is your friend. The same it's supposed to be between husband and wife. So these issues are not discussed. And I think, imams make mistakes, we make mistakes, and this is something that, look, elders, imams need to start to address and readdress.
Definitely. So
I'm just thinking in terms of practically when going into marriage, or even for those in marriages that are failing, where the husband and wife are not happy, what then is the way forward for them from that point?
I would say, look, it's not straightforward. There are scenarios which are pre-marriage that need to be reflected on, and there are scenarios now after marriage. Now, remember, an important element in they call it maqasid, the aims of the Sharia, is hifdud-din, protection of the deen, of the religion of a person. So we've seen cases where, and I'm not judging by statistics, but look what I've experienced. Many of the sisters who have come out of marriages end up leaving Islam or practicing very, very little. Let's say they got married, they're wearing hijab, they were praying, they've got divorced, salah's gone, hijab's gone, raving, partying, and so on. So that needs to be reflected on. Divorce is straightforward and simple in Islam, but the ramifications on that wife or the husband, or for example the children, all of those have to be looked into. At the same time, I think if it's no happiness, nobody can survive. That eventually will be detrimental to a person's deen, iman, and kids anyway. So that has to be kind of like reflected on.
So why, kind of stepping back, in your experience of dealing with many couples that come to you for advice, as an imam, I mean, I know you said there's a lack of, one of the reasons is probably a lack of love, but when I like how you kind of categorized it into pre-marriage, leading to it, and also, in the marriage. What do you think is lacking before two people get married that's leading to marital problems? Because obviously, as practicing individuals, you may not necessarily fall in love with the person or be able to fall in love with the person because of the boundaries within the deen. So yeah, I guess what is happening that perhaps can be rectified, or what isn't happening that can lead to a better outcome in marriages.
I think one of your shows and discussions on, I think, gender roles, there was a great emphasis on, let's say, cultural norms, yeah, and how they play a part in our lives and so on. And Islam is not against that. You know, they have a principle, they say al-urf muhakkam, which means customs play a part in our life, in Islam, in fact, as long as they don't contradict, you know, Islam or Quran and Sunnah and so on. So the element there is now in terms of compatibility. So sometimes, yes, going back to that kind of like religious kind of like judgment. Okay, she's wearing hijab, but she's from another country. Yeah, and that happens with some communities here. I'm marrying from back home.
Yeah.
Language is not there. Culture is very different. Communication is lacking, and so on and so on. So there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ which is very profound. In it, he says, تَخَيَّرُوا لِنُطْفِكُمْ. Takhayyaru means now be selective. Yeah, choose your spouse. You know, so how many times we're actually rushing into marriage? We help in our community. We have a matrimonial service for the local Lewisham Muslim community. So we'd organize matrimonial meetings. A person would meet once, twice, 3 times. We're ready. Akhi, you're not ready. Sister, you're not ready. No, we're ready. You're stopping us from getting married. Look, you're depriving us of good. Akhi, you're not married. 8 out of 10 times, you know, after a month or 2, problems. And then, you know, they're blaming the Imam. Look, you know, he didn't advise us and so on. So the hadith actually goes on to say, فَأَنْكِهُ الْأَكِفَّةِ, marry those who you are compatible with. These 2 pre-ingredients to marriage, you know, looking for that love, compatibility.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, you can have somebody you pray with, you fast with, but there's no chemistry. You don't get, so you come home, you pray, okay, you know, you read Quran together, but
what's next?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean, this is what many married couples are facing, that perhaps on a kind of dini level, it's secure, it's stable, they're supporting one another, but in terms of emotional compatibility, they're empty.
And I was going to ask about that, the concept of compatibility. Because, you know, I know that back in the day when I was younger, it was a case of, does he pray? Does he fast?
Does he wear a thobe?
Does he wear a thobe? Are we on the same line of thinking in terms of the deen, you know, kind of following the same way? And that was the benchmark for compatibility. That was what we were looking at, and to say, yes, this is it. This is the one. But now we're in an age where, wait, I'd actually like to be in a relationship with someone that I connect with beyond just what they look like and their level of deen, you know, and that's where people are asking different questions. And some people are uncomfortable with that. Why this isn't important. You know, you get people saying it's not important to be compatible, just as long as they are on the same deen level as you.
The barakah will come.
Yeah. Allah will bless your marriage, and you know, but then okay, it might last for a while. But then what?
And I would ask, when it comes to, we hear from the sister side a lot, and as a man yourself and hearing from the brothers, what would you say are their point of view, things that are lacking or what needs to be done when it comes to failing? What are their gripes about failing marriages?
Interesting question.
See, going back to the initial point, you know, if that love is not there, compatibility, that, you know, they'll never be happy. And so those brothers might not find major reasons. They might say the wife is praying, but sometimes can't reflect and see, look, you know what, the real reason why we're not happy is there is no compatibility. There is no kind of like love. And then how can that, Sister LaYinka mentioned, you know, you sustain it for a while, but a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then the stress and the pressure becomes too much where it's just the end. So I think those are important. Inside the marriage, brothers have various reasons. Yeah, reasons are sometimes it's intimacy. Sometimes, you know, the society we're living in is always looking at the other person. Yeah, I want my wife to be like that, you know, sister or that lady. So those are always kind of like negative kind of like features inside a marriage and so on. So that's there.
What about, do you find that, because we're talking about a lack of love and connection being one of the reasons, in your work, do you find that, I'm trying to find the right words to describe this, do you find that sisters are complaining that they're facing, I mean, there's clear, obviously, abuse, psychological and physical abuse, but do you find that sisters come to you complaining that their husbands are spiritually abusing them, in the sense that they're using the deen, they're using Islam to oppress them, to suppress them, to kind of control them? Do you find that are you facing that from the sisters?
Yeah, and I think the important, in terms of the discussion that you're having as sisters, why this is good and important is because it's coming from sisters. And some of the complaint from the sisters is, you as an imam, as a man, you're saying this, but we're not hearing from sisters, what really we are going through. But that is a very, very, you could say, prevalent cases, within the community. I had one sister, she called me and she said, look, my husband's beating me physically, and I know it's okay.
She says that.
She says that to me, and I think, and I know he's allowed to do this. And try to convince her to say, look, sister, you know what? This is not right. So if a sister, and of course, that's manipulation.
Wow.
Actually, tell you the truth, it might not be just from the husband.
Yeah.
That sometimes comes from imams and society and Muslim elders and the community and so on. Don't worry, be patient, it's okay. He's allowed to. And of course, texts are manipulated and so on. So that is also there.
SubhanAllah. But that makes me so sad. And actually, I'm you can see me, yeah? I find, how is it that we as a Muslim community have presented Islam in such a way that a sister says it's okay. It's okay to be beaten. It's okay to be abused. It's okay to be manipulated. And I accept it. And as long as I have sabr, this could be my path to Jannah. That really grates on me. I don't even know what to say. I find I'm just so angry about that. How do you deal with a sister? How did you deal with the sister that came to you?
As a side point, we're a family. And the Muslim community, I love the Muslim community. And I think it's very, very crucial that these discussions happen.
Yes.
And it's very, very crucial that, we are educated and sisters are educated and empowered with Islamic knowledge.
Yes.
And that's the key.
Yes.
You mentioned, look, how do we counter this? Look, empowerment of knowledge is key.
Yes.
That, the Prophet ﷺ, this, he said this to about 100,000 companions in his farewell sermon. Be good. I advise you, admonish you, be good to your women folk. Yeah. Of course, there's many other ahadith, but what else do we need? Yeah. This is sufficient for any sister to know, for any man to know, and for any sister to know, look, I should not be putting up this. Of course, look, I can go on more, but I think sometimes it might just become very negative for some of the cases that we have where it's bad. Yeah, so yeah.
So what is the damage control? If we're thinking for someone who, before they get into a relationship, we know about love and compatibility. What are some of the things that they can do pre-marriage to ensure that they enter into a wholesome, healthy relationship?
So I think the duties on family, the duty and responsibility on walis, on imams, on the community. We are very quick to talk behind, individuals or people. But when it comes to, he's a good brother, yeah, he's a very good brother. Good sister, very good sister. While we know, wait a minute, there are some question marks and issues.
SubhanAllah.
That need to be said.
To have taqwa. To have taqwa when you're recommending or you're responding to someone's question as to whether this person is good or not.
Because there is that fear of backbiting and slander and...
Not in that case.
And of course, like you said, not in that case. You're obliged to tell that person what you know. And sometimes it's not knowledge that you're sure, but you have doubts. And you can express, I've heard some stuff and they're problematic. You need to investigate. Well, he needs to investigate, or the family needs to investigate.
I mean, LaYinka just asked about what can be done kind of pre-marriage to counter the marital problems that a couple could face. But what about when, we have viewers who are watching and they're not happy, they're empty. Maybe they've been in this situation for years. What would you say to them? What would you advise?
So once you're in that situation, and the key element of, let's say, progressing that marriage or even resolving issues is communication. And sometimes between, like spouses, that's lacking. The relationship is okay. They have discussions. It's about, how are you? You're okay, fine. But there's no real communication of addressing issues to resolve issues. That's another key element that needs to be there inside a marriage, that they are discussing and talking. It might be, look, I mean, when I have counseling sessions, I always advise, I say, look, set 2-3 times a week, an hour each, when the children are sleeping. This hour is communication. Yeah. And you might, because sometimes a man can be dominating, or even a woman. And so she speaks or he speaks. Okay, you speak for 10 minutes, he must listen. She speaks for 10 minutes and vice versa, so half
it becomes natural.
Becomes natural, and then they start discussing the issues and so on. But communication is a key element of it.
Yeah, I think we what's lacking within the community are workshops and trainings in regards to how to communicate with your spouse, and I think we need more of that. And we definitely need the khutbah to be more on to speak more on these issues as well.
And I think just to take on that,
Yeah,
we do, as women, we have loads of things that are facilitated for us in terms of workshops and classes and this and that. I think there needs to be more things done with couples.
yes,
Like more workshops, classes where both parties are present, because sisters complain.
yes.
I'm doing all the growth work. I'm doing all the personal development and getting
I'm
therapy.
changing.
I'm changing, and he's doing nothing. And he's staying the way he is. And I don't know if that's a common complaint that you get, Imam, like women saying that, but he's not doing anything. I'm doing everything and I'm trying my best. I'm doing as best as I can, but he's deciding that he's okay and he doesn't want to change. Do you get that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say all the time. I mean, there is a balance. Sometimes it's the other way around. With the husband is trying, the wife doesn't want to.
Right.
Or the wife is trying, or the husband doesn't want to. So I think that, it's kind of like what my experience anyway. It's kind of like balanced. But I think going back to that point of love, is quite crucial. And I just thought of something. I done a reminder. I do a nightly reminder nearly every night after Isha. So I've done something on love. And the next day, a brother from the community, he came and he said, look, you know what? Because I said, look, you need to say to your spouse or to your family, I love you. He came back, he said, look, I can't do it. I've never done it. And he's been married for quite a while. I've never done it. And I don't know how to.
Wow.
So, I gave him some advice. The next day, he said he tried. He couldn't do it. And then he said, let me do it in a roundabout way. So instead of saying, I love you, I have a lot of love for you.
Oh, that's even sweeter.
But still couldn't do it.
He couldn't do I have a lot of love for you.
Both, I love you, I have a lot of love for you. He just finds it difficult to express himself in that way. So you will find sometimes, especially that's coming from a man's perspective, it's difficult. People do need workshops, people do need education, people do need, look, sisters also, like I said, family. Have you approached imams in your community? Are you telling imams, look, you know what? This is what sisters are going through. There's no topic on love. There's no topic on compatibility. Marriages are failing. We need to be close and like a family and advise one another. At the end of the day, we're all suffering.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because that, for our viewers will empower them to work towards change in their own communities and approaching their own imams and saying, this is what the community needs. And that's brilliant advice.
I think one thing that comes in my mind is we talked about the therapy that women are doing and we work with women, but how do you think is the best way to address brothers when it comes to coming to counseling, getting therapy for themselves and healing in their own right so that they can come to the marriage from a healthier place?
Beforehand or after marriage?
At any point.
Yeah. I mean, I think one issue is knowing oneself. Yeah. So sometimes a person doesn't know himself or gets to know himself at a later stage after marriage.
Yes.
That's crucial. And that also comes to the issue of like pre-marriage not rushing into marriages. That's been a disaster.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been on deen 1 year, he's been practicing for 2 years, he's ready to marriage. Or subhanallah, some of the cases are like, this brother just took shahada recently, and somebody else, and he's come to me and I said, look, you're not ready, akhi, wait. And somebody said, no, and they're making me look bad. Well, how comes the Imam's telling you this? Got him married, literally a few weeks, marriage failed. And it actually spoiled my relationship with him, because
that's sad.
we got into an argument over it. You're not ready, akhi. I'm telling you, look, I am ready. I know what I'm doing. I'm a big man. Akhi, no, I've got experience. Please listen to me. No, and so on. So, that kind of like marriage, take your time, understand yourself before you start looking for someone else, and make sure once you know yourself what you're looking for in terms of compatibility. That is important. But also in terms of counseling, and it's a taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shame.
So, why would I go to, what's wrong with me? I'm not sick, I'm not mentally sick, and so on. So that's something that needs to be kind of like explored as well.
In terms of for men.
More men. Yeah, women are very keen to kind of like, they're open to kind of like
talking.
Yeah.
I think I like what you said, because how can you know what to be compatible? How can you know what you're going to be compatible with unless you know yourself? And so I think on both sides, the sisters need to know who they are, the brothers need to know they are, and then they can be authentically honest with what they want and need. But often you find, like you said, they don't know who they are, or they find out later on. So I want to come back to that point. For those who maybe have been practicing for a long time, so we're not talking about the new revert, we're not talking about the newly practicing Muslim, we're talking about those that have been in the deen for a long time, but they've kind of gone on a journey and they've really kind of got to know themselves, and they realize that the person that they're married to is not compatible with them. It's not what they want. It's not who they want to spend the rest of their life with. But they've got children. They're kind of stable. They've been in the marriage for a long time. I don't know if you face cases like this, but what would you say?
I mean, that's difficult. Yeah, because look, they've been together for so long. Is it an element of, this is inside the marriage now, where a person wants too much? Is there an element of lack of appreciation? Yeah, and that's something that the Messenger of Allah spoke about. He said, you see in your spouse negativity, overlook that and look at the positivity. Yeah, and make the marriage work. So that's his advice, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is it that? Is it more than that? Is there no compatibility? Is there little compatibility? Yes. It varies, and the effect on children, the effect on the spouses, all of those things. And I think a key element would be, again, in the same fashion we're saying, don't rush towards marriage, don't rush towards divorce. Communication, mediation, those kind of like avenues needs to be explored. Where at the end, if somebody is saying, look, we've explored everything, we're just not happy. I think that happiness as an ingredient, which comes from love and the compatibility we spoke about, if the happiness is not there, a person needs to feel happy in the home. If the happiness is not there and they've explored everything, then
what about if the happiness is from one side? The unhappiness is from one side, because sometimes that is the case. There's one party in the marriage, that one spouse
has no problem.
is just like, this is good,
this is good. But the other
one is deeply, What then? What do you advise them?
I don't think so, though.
Really?
How can it be? Because look, it's a partnership. You're going to live off one another. He can probably say, or she can say, look, I am happy.
I'm content. But sometimes it's just contentment. This is good. There's nothing bad. It's not wow, but it's okay. And we could carry on okay for the rest of our lives.
She may be desiring more than okay. She may want to feel in love. She may want to feel that emotional connection and intimacy. And for him, his kind of standard is that it's good. It's functional. We're good. We're functional. So in that situation,
what do you?
But do you think is she happy in that situation? She wants more. She's striving for more, whether it be religion or love or whatever. She wants more, and she's not getting it from him. And he will feel those vibes. He will see that. Look, you know what? I'm not giving her what she wants, and eventually it will lead him
to go down
and not be happy.
Right. And maybe him then saying, okay, it's good, is maybe from a place of, I just want to keep this together. Right?
Yeah. So there are cases like that.
Yeah.
Where the person might be saying, look, you know what? I am not happy. But look, I've got 3 kids. I've got 4 kids. I've got 5 kids. Look, I don't want to lose them.
Mm.
And sometimes between spouses, that's sometimes men are weak. They don't want to divorce because they love their kids so much. So they're in there for the kids. Usually we say it's the women, but sometimes it's the men saying, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we had a comment like that actually on our
One of the episodes.
divorce episode, and it was like, but I'm staying for my kids, and I'm a man.
So, I mean, this has been such an insightful discussion, mashallah, and we are really, really grateful that you've come on board on this episode, mashallah. Your final kind of thoughts about why marriages fell for the viewers, inshallah, what would you say?
I'd say, firstly, I think it's a very important discussion that sisters need to have, and community members need to have, and this needs to be passed on to imams so they discuss it with their communities. The failure of marriages has a very negative impact on our children, which then has an impact in society and so on. Statistics in UK will say, look, kids that go into crime, into prostitution, into drugs are from broken families. So we do need to make our marriages work. And I think the important thing is the ingredients that we're looking for pre-marriage. Right. Love, compatibility, seeking happiness, these are crucial.
Excellent. I'm so glad that you've mentioned that. This is, and I'm so glad that you mentioned it as a man and as an imam, a respected leader in our community, that you've mentioned this, because it has never been mentioned before. So, Jazakallah khair, Imam Shakeel. We definitely need to have a part 2 on this, I feel. So that wraps up this episode on why marriages fail. I'm sure that the comments are going to be flooded. Do share your thoughts about what we've discussed, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode, inshallah.
I am safe to express myself fully and openly about what is on heart and mind for me.
In certain cultures, it's more like I'm friends with my parents and we can talk about anything, and in other cultures it's aib and a shame, and you shouldn't ever mention that in front of your parents.
They're not bringing their true selves to the relationship.
To feel like shame in your relationship with your spouse, on goes the mosque.
The rules you have that this need must be met by this person. So now if that person's not playing ball, you're going to be high and dry, right?
And women tend to do that. Like, can't you see I'm sad?